I stood outside Perch, the French rooftop restaurant in downtown LA, watching the city lights blur into streaks of gold and crimson through the floor-to-ceiling windows. My reflection stared back at me, a 28-year-old woman in a navy blazer and cream silk blouse, looking every bit the successful marketing director I'd worked so hard to become. But inside, I felt like I was still that 12-year-old girl trying to earn her parents' attention while her older sister basked in their unconditional adoration. My phone buzzed. Caleb. "You sure about this?" his text read. I typed back quickly. Too late to back out now. He knew what tonight was. My parents' 35th wedding anniversary dinner, the latest in an endless series of family gatherings where I played the role of silent benefactor, smiling through gritted teeth while footing bills that should never have been mine to pay. But tonight would be different. Tonight, I was done. I pushed through the restaurant's entrance and the maitre d' recognized me immediately. Of course he did. The Harper family had been here enough times, always at my expense, though my name never appeared on the reservation. "Miss Harper, your family is waiting." I followed him through the dining room, past tables of well-dressed Angelenos sipping wine and murmuring over candlelight. The restaurant's ambiance was deliberately romantic. Soft jazz, dim lighting, that carefully curated atmosphere of old-world elegance that Beverly Hills types loved. My family's table sat near the windows, offering a panoramic view of the glittering city below. They were already there, all of them. My mother, Susan Harper, sat with her back straight, her ash blonde hair styled in those soft waves she'd perfected over years of salon appointments. She wore a pearl necklace I'd bought her for her last birthday, though she'd never once acknowledged it was from me. My father, Richard Harper, had the comfortable look of a retired businessman who'd spent his career building a construction company and now spent his days golfing at the country club. His silver hair and tailored suit gave him an air of distinguished authority he'd never truly earned. And then there was Tiffany. My older sister sat at the head of the table like a queen holding court. At 32, she'd perfected the art of looking effortlessly glamorous. Designer dress, professionally done makeup, that smile that said she owned every room she entered. Her engagement ring caught the light, a massive emerald-cut diamond that her fiancé Bradley had somehow afforded despite his struggling real estate career. I knew the truth about that ring. I'd seen the credit card statement. "Diana," my mother's voice carried that practiced enthusiasm that fooled everyone but me. We were starting to worry. "Traffic on the 110, I said, taking the empty seat between my father and Caleb's vacant chair. He'd promised to join us later, after his meeting in Pasadena wrapped up. "Happy anniversary, Mom and Dad." 35 years. My father raised his wine glass, already half empty. "Can you believe it, Princess?" He was talking to Tiffany, not me. He always was. "It's incredible," Tiffany said, reaching across the table to squeeze his hand. "You two are relationship goals." Seriously. I wondered if she saw the irony in that statement. Our parents' marriage had been built on my father working 80-hour weeks while my mother perfected the art of social climbing. But they'd stayed together, which apparently counted for something. "Diana, you look tired," my mother observed, her eyes scanning me with clinical precision. "Are you sleeping enough?" "I'm fine, Mom." "You work too hard." This from Tiffany, who hadn't held a full-time job since her brief stint as a yoga instructor 3 years ago. "You need to learn to relax, maybe take a vacation." I thought about the Napa Valley trip last spring, the one Tiffany had insisted we all take together for quality family time, the one where I'd somehow ended up paying for her hotel suite upgrade and her wine tasting expenses because she'd forgotten her credit card. "Maybe," I said neutrally. The waiter appeared with menus and a wine list. My father immediately ordered a bottle of Chateau Margaux, $400 minimum. I watched him do it, watched my mother nod approvingly, watched Tiffany beam with pleasure. None of them looked at me. But they would. By the end of the night, they'd have to. We fell into the familiar rhythm of family dinner conversation. My mother talked about her garden club. My father discussed his golf game. Tiffany regaled us with stories about wedding planning, the dress fittings, the venue search, the agonizing decisions about floral arrangements. I listened and smiled and said the appropriate things at the appropriate times. I'd learned this performance years ago, perfected it through countless dinners just like this one. But in my mind, I was calculating. The last dinner at Mastro's, $2,200. The weekend in Santa Barbara, $3,800, including Tiffany's spa day. My mother's dental work last year, the procedure her insurance wouldn't cover, $6,000. Tiffany's car payment 3 months ago, when Bradley's commission check was delayed, $900. The list went on, an endless ledger of expenses that had nothing to do with me but somehow always became my responsibility. Diana. I looked up. My mother was watching me with that particular expression, half concern, half calculation. You seem distracted. Just thinking about work, I lied. Always work with you. My father shook his head. You should be more like your sister. Tiffany knows how to enjoy life. Tiffany preened under his approval. She'd always been his favorite. The daughter who met his expectations simply by existing. I was the afterthought, the spare, the one who had to prove her worth through achievement and sacrifice. Well, I was done proving anything. The food arrived. I'd barely noticed ordering it. Some kind of Chilean sea base that probably cost $60 a plate. My father had ordered the tomahawk ribeye because, of course, he had. Tiffany picked at a salad that cost $40 for what amounted to a handful of organic greens. We ate. We talked. The conversation flowed around me like water around a stone. And then, across the restaurant, I saw him. Mark Bennett. He was standing near the bar, talking to the bartender, but his eyes were on me. I hadn't seen him in almost 2 years, not since he'd helped me set up my investment portfolio. He was a financial attorney now, working at one of those prestigious firms in Century City. We dated briefly in college, stayed friends afterward, lost touch gradually the way people do. But he was here now, and he was looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. I excused myself from the table, telling my family I needed to use the restroom. My mother barely registered my departure. She was too busy showing my father photos of potential wedding venues on her phone. I made my way to the bar, weaving between tables. Mark met me halfway. Diana Harper? His smile was warm, genuine. I thought that was you. Mark, what are you doing here? Client dinner. Just finished. He gestured vaguely toward a table in the corner. I saw you sitting with your family and, well, I had to say hello. There was something in his tone. Something that suggested he knew exactly what was happening at that table. Mark had always been perceptive. It was what made him such a good lawyer. How have you been? I asked. Better question. How have you been? His eyes searched mine. And don't give me the standard answer. I can see it all over your face. You're wound up tighter than a spring. I laughed, but it came out bitter. That obvious? To someone who knows you? Yeah. He paused. They're doing it again, aren't they? Your family. I didn't have to ask what he meant. Mark had been there during college, had witnessed some of those early iterations of family dysfunction. He'd been the one who first pointed out that my relationship with Tiffany wasn't normal sisterly rivalry. It was something much more toxic. It's fine, I said automatically. Diana. His voice was gentle but firm. It's not fine. It's never been fine. I felt something crack inside me, some wall I'd been carefully maintaining. I can't do this here. Then don't. Mark glanced back at my family's table. But let me ask you something. Are you paying for that dinner tonight? I didn't answer, which was answer enough. I thought so. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I remembered from our college days. How much have you given them? Collectively, I mean. Over the years? I don't keep track. Liar. He said it without malice. You keep track of everything. It's who you are. He was right. I knew exactly how much I'd spent on my family over the past 5 years. The number lived in my mind like a persistent ghost. $147,000. I need to get back, I said. Diana, wait. Mark touched my arm lightly. I know this isn't my business, but you deserve better than this. You know that, right? I wanted to argue with him, to defend my family, to explain that they didn't mean to take advantage of me, but the words wouldn't come. Because deep down, I knew he was right. Thanks, Mark. Really, it's good to see you. I turned to walk back to the table, but he called after me. If you need backup, I'm right here. I didn't understand what he meant. Not yet. Back at the table, my family had moved on to dessert wine. My mother was laughing at something my father had said. That tinkling, practiced laugh she used in social situations. Tiffany was showing my father more wedding photos. None of them had noticed I'd been gone. I slid back into my seat just as the waiter approached with the leather folder containing our bill. He set it down exactly in the center of the table, equidistant from everyone. The conversation stopped. My mother looked at the bill, then at my father. My father looked at Tiffany. Tiffany looked at me. And there it was. That familiar weight, that unspoken expectation, that invisible hand pushing the responsibility toward me. My mother broke the silence first. Diana, honey, you don't mind covering this, right? Your father and I need to save for Tiffany's wedding, and you know how expensive everything is. Her voice trailed off, but the implication hung in the air. I was supposed to nod, smile, pull out my credit card, and play my role. The reliable daughter, the responsible one, the ATM in a blazer. I looked at the bill. $3,247 for one meal. For a celebration that had nothing to do with me. Something inside me shifted. Actually, Mom, I said, my voice steady, I do mind. The words seemed to hang in the air like smoke. My mother's smile froze. My father's expression shifted from relaxed to confused. Tiffany's eyes narrowed. What? My mother's laugh was uncertain. Diana, don't be difficult. I'm not being difficult, I'm being honest. I pushed the bill back toward the center of the table. This is your anniversary dinner, your celebration, you should pay for it. Diana. My father's voice carried that warning tone I remembered from childhood, the one that meant I was stepping out of line. Your mother and I have expenses. So do I. I kept my voice calm, reasonable. I have a mortgage, a car payment, student loans I'm still paying off, and yet somehow I've been covering your expenses for years. That's not fair. Tiffany leaned forward, her voice sharp. We're family. Family helps each other. You're right, I said. Family should help each other. So why does the help only flow in one direction? Because you have more than we do, my mother said, as if this explained everything. You have that wonderful job, that beautiful condo in Silver Lake. That I worked for, that I earned. I felt my control slipping, felt years of resentment rising to the surface. Do you know why I have those things? Because I don't spend $20,000 on a wedding I can't afford. Because I don't take luxury vacations I expect someone else to pay for. Because I don't treat my sister like a personal bank account. How dare you? Tiffany's face had gone red. I have never... Last month, I interrupted, my voice cutting through hers like a knife. You called me crying because Bradley's car broke down and you needed $800 for repairs. I sent it to you immediately. Do you know what I found out last week? Bradley's car is fine. You used that money for Botox. The silence that followed was absolute. Tiffany's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. My mother looked stricken. My father seemed to have shrunk in his seat. The Napa trip, I continued, the words flowing now like water through a broken dam. The one where you forgot your credit card, $3,800, the weekend in Santa Barbara, the countless dinners, Mom's dental work, Tiffany's car payments, Dad's golf club dues. It adds up. You're keeping score? My father's voice was incredulous. That's what family means to you? A ledger? No, Dad. Family means love, support, mutual respect. What we have is a system where I give and give and give, and you take and take and take, and nobody ever says thank you. We do appreciate you, my mother said quickly. Of course we do. We just thought... You thought I'd never say no. I looked at each of them in turn. You thought I was too afraid of losing you to ever set boundaries. You thought you could count on me being the good daughter, the understanding one, the one who never causes problems. Tiffany found her voice again. You're being dramatic. We've never forced you to do anything. You're right. You never forced me. You just manipulated me. You just made me feel guilty every time I considered saying no. You just made it clear that my value in this family was directly tied to what I could provide. That's not true. But my mother's voice lacked conviction. I felt someone approach the table and turned. Mark was standing there, his presence solid and reassuring. Sorry to interrupt, he said, though his tone suggested he wasn't sorry at all. Diana, I just wanted to make sure you were okay. I'm fine, Mark, thanks. But he didn't leave. Instead, he looked at my family with the kind of professional assessment I'd seen him use in courtroom settings. Mark Bennett, he introduced himself, extending his hand to my father. I'm a friend of Diana's. We went to college together. I'm a financial attorney now. My father shook his hand warily. Richard Harper. I couldn't help overhearing, Mark said, and I realized this was intentional, that he'd positioned himself close enough to monitor our conversation. And I think there's something your family should know. Mark, I started, but he shook his head gently. Diana won't say this herself because she's too kind, but I've done the math. Over the past 5 years, she's given your family approximately $147,000. That's not including gifts, incidental expenses, or the countless hours of emotional labor she's provided. The number hung in the air like an indictment. My mother's face had gone pale. My father looked like he'd been slapped. Even Tiffany seemed momentarily speechless. That money, Mark continued, his voice professional and calm, could have been invested, could have been used for Diana's own future, her own security, her own happiness. Instead, it went to subsidizing a lifestyle that none of you have actually earned. Now wait just a minute, my father began, his face reddening. No, sir. You wait. Mark's voice remained level, but there was steel beneath it. Diana is one of the kindest, most generous people I've ever known, and you've taken advantage of that. Not maliciously, perhaps, but the result is the same. I felt tears prick my eyes, but I blinked them back. I wouldn't cry. Not here. Not now. The question is, Mark said, looking at each member of my family in turn, what are you going to do about it? Because Diana has finally found the courage to say no. And you can either respect that or you can lose her entirely. He stepped back then, returning to his position at the bar. But his message had landed with devastating accuracy. My mother was the first to speak. Diana, we had no idea. Yes, you did. My voice was quiet but firm. You knew. You just chose not to think about it. Tiffany's eyes were shining with tears, but I couldn't tell if they were genuine or performative. I never meant to take advantage of you. But you did, over and over, and you never stopped to consider what it cost me. Not just financially, but emotionally. My phone buzzed. Caleb. He was outside, asking if I was ready to leave. Perfect timing. I stood up, reaching for my purse. I'm leaving now. You can figure out how to pay this bill, and from now on, you can figure out how to pay all your bills. I'm done being your safety net. Diana, please. My mother reached for my hand, but I pulled away gently. Don't leave like this. We can talk about this. We've had years to talk about this. You just never wanted to listen. I looked at my father. I love you all. I really do. But I can't keep setting myself on fire to keep you warm. So that's it? Tiffany's voice was sharp with anger, the tears already drying. You're just going to abandon your family? No, I'm going to have boundaries. There's a difference. I slung my purse over my shoulder. When you're ready to have a real relationship with me, one based on mutual respect and genuine care, I'll be here. But I won't be your ATM anymore. I won't be your backup plan, and I won't be guilted into sacrificing my own well-being for your comfort. I turned to leave, but my father's voice stopped me. Diana. I looked back at him. For the first time in my life. I saw something in his expression I'd never seen before. Shame. You're right, he said quietly. About all of it, we've been unfair to you. I've been unfair to you. It wasn't an apology. Not really, but it was acknowledgement, which was more than I'd expected. Thank you, I said. That means something. I walked away from the table, feeling lighter with each step. Mark caught my eye as I passed the bar, giving me a small nod of approval. I nodded back, grateful for his intervention, grateful for his presence. Outside, the Los Angeles night wrapped around me like a cool embrace. The city sparkled below, all those lights representing all those lives, all those people making their own choices and setting their own boundaries. Caleb was waiting by his Tesla, leaning against the door with his hands in his pockets. When he saw my face, he smiled. How'd it go? I walked into his arms, letting myself finally breathe. I said no. Good. He kissed the top of my head. I'm proud of you. They were shocked, hurt, angry. They'll get over it, or they won't. Either way, you did the right thing. We drove back to my condo in Silver Lake, the condo I'd bought with money I'd earned in the neighborhood I'd chosen, filled with furniture I'd picked out. My space. My life. Mine. Later that night, curled up on my couch with Caleb beside me and a cup of tea warming my hands, I checked my phone. There were 3 texts waiting. One from my mother. We need to talk. Please call me. One from my father. I'm sorry, truly. Can we have lunch next week? My treat. And one from Tiffany. I hate that you made me look bad in front of everyone. But maybe you had a point. Can we start over? I didn't respond to any of them. Not yet. They could wait, because for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting on them. I wasn't arranging my life around their needs, their schedules, their expectations. I was just existing. In my own space, in my own time, making my own choices. Caleb squeezed my hand. What are you thinking about? Doors, I said, and boundaries, and how they're not the same thing as walls. He smiled. That sounds like something you learned today. I did. I leaned against him, feeling the steady rhythm of his breathing. Boundaries aren't about shutting people out. They're about choosing when to let them in. And on what terms? And I'm choosing peace, my own peace, whatever that looks like. A week later, I met my father for lunch at a small cafe in Pasadena, just the 2 of us. He paid as promised. We talked for 2 hours, really talked, about things we'd never discussed before. His own relationship with his parents, the pressure he'd felt to provide for his family, the ways he'd failed me as a father. He cried. I'd never seen him cry before. 2 weeks after that, my mother came to my condo. She brought flowers in an envelope containing a check for $6,000, the cost of her dental work. I tried to refuse it, but she insisted. I can't pay back everything, she said, but I can start, and I can stop expecting you to carry us. Tiffany took longer. She sent sporadic texts, most of them defensive, some of them accusatory. But slowly, over months, her messages changed. She got a part-time job at a boutique in Beverly Hills. She started paying her own bills. She even apologized, though it took her 3 tries to get the words right. I was jealous of you, she admitted during a coffee date 6 months later. You had your life together, you were successful, and instead of being happy for you, I took advantage. I'm sorry. It wasn't perfect, we weren't suddenly close, but it was real, which mattered more. I ran into Mark at a legal conference 8 months after that dinner at Perch. He bought me a drink and asked how things were going. Better, I told him. Different, but better. Good, he smiled. You deserved better. I'm glad you finally realized that. Thank you for what you did that night, for saying the things I couldn't. You would have said them eventually, I just expedited the process. He paused. Are you happy? I thought about it, really thought about it. Yeah, I said. I think I am. And I was. Not because everything was perfect, or because my family had completely transformed, or because all our problems had magically disappeared. I was happy because I'd learned something crucial. Boundaries aren't walls. They're doors you choose when to open. Closing one doesn't mean loneliness, it means peace. It means choosing yourself. It means understanding that love without respect isn't really love at all. My family had to learn to function without me as their safety net. It was hard for them, uncomfortable, sometimes painful, but it was necessary. Because real love, the kind worth having, doesn't require you to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. It asks you to stand in your own light and invites others to stand in theirs. And that night at Perch, when I finally said no, when I finally chose myself, that was when I learned to stand. Everything else followed from there.